Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Happy Moment. My name is Dan. I'm glad you could join me today. And today I have two very special guests with me. I have Mr. Jack Bowman and Mr. Kenton Hall. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very
Uh,
much. Pleasure.
yeah, and Jack and Kenton are here to talk about a couple projects related to the lost classic London After Midnight. And both of you gentlemen I know have a quite extensive experience in the world of producing and writing and even acting a little bit. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys today. And just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join me.
Well, don't thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
As just a little bit of a background, so London After Midnight is a silent movie from, I believe, 1927, starring the great Lon Chaney, directed by Todd Browning. And as far as everyone knows, there is no complete version of this movie that exists anymore. Is that correct?
Yes, it was destroyed. The last known surviving print was destroyed in 1965 in the MGM Vault fire. A lot of silent classics, a lot of Lon Chaney work, who was the star of London After Midnight, literally evaporated that night as the films combusted and burnt the whole vault down to the ground. And with that, London After Midnight officially, as a silent horror classic, was lost forever.
That's very sad. It's a lot of important culture there that got destroyed. And so Jack and Kenton have a couple projects related to the movie. They released a full cast audio production of it, and just more recently, a novelization as well.
So I was going to reply and then it just turned into a breath and everything went
That's
horribly
okay.
awkward for a moment. Yes,
Yeah.
the answer to the question would be yes, we have. The first thing we worked on and kind of the planet around which all the other projects orbit is the audio adaptation, which was came down to Jack actually hearing that London After Midnight had gone into the public domain and then reaching out to myself and my co-writer Lance Roger Axt, who we'd worked with Jack, both of us separately, had never worked together before. But the original script existed, which was the closest thing you could get to actually sort of scoping out the entire plot. There had been a photo reconstruction made previously that had shown on Turner Classic Movies, but no one had ever actually made any attempt to remake it in any form. Other Todd Browning made what they call a remake of London After Midnight and Mark of the Vampire, but it's so different in its storytelling that it's all kind of more inspired by than a real remake. So we went to the original script. Now, the difference between adapting a silent film script and adapting a book into a script or a script into an audio drama is that there is maybe 5 lines of written dialogue in the actual silent movie script that would have been title cards. A lot of title cards in silent movies were actually written after the fact. The screenplay would be written in order to give a sense for the actors and the director to work on the visuals, and then a title writer would then go in and decide where titles might be placed. We work very differently on different films, but in London After Midnight script, we realized that we were going to basically there was a in a good way for us in a lot of ways is that we were going to have to create the dialogue from whole cloth. We were going to have to invent the audio version of the storytelling. And then it was a case of just drilling down into why London After Midnight was iconic in the first place. There was a lot when we first announced it, there was a lot of, your internet wags. They're going, how do you make an audio drama out of a silent movie? Yes, very well. Yes,
Including
have you just discovered irony, dear? Well done. Um,
including Screen Rant
Yeah,
of all
yeah.
people.
It's
Yes.
great. It's crazy. One thing isn't another thing. So yeah, you geniuses in the entertainment
Mm.
journalism field. But the whole point of adaptation, it's the same thing as people who complain that books aren't like movies. Well, aardvarks aren't like stepladders either. They're completely different things. But when you move between mediums, the only thing you really need to have to carry, you can carry as much of the plot as you like. You can carry the characters. You can carry even some of the dialogue. But the thing you have to carry for it to be the same story is what the underpinning themes and spirit of it is. Now, London After Midnight, the reason why it survived, the reason why, despite the fact that no one had seen it for 60 years, it was still being talked about, is that it had a kind of iconic spookiness. The visual of the Man in the Beaver Hat, Lon Chaney's character, as it influenced horror down the generations, up to the visual look of things like The Black Phone, more about the writer of which later, I'm sure. But so something in it captured the imagination. And a lot of it has to do with its status as a lost film. There's no way of quantifying one way or the other, whether it's a lost film classic or something that maybe was burned on purpose. But visually, it was very striking. So you have to say, well, using all the tricks that we know about an audio drama, how do we create that same atmosphere, that same feel, recreate the character in sound and in dialogue, to try to make it still feel like London After Midnight, to make the people that listen to it feel like they are getting a version of London After Midnight. But then at the same time, as a writer, when you're adapting something, if you hit something and you're like, well, this doesn't work, then you write something else. Within the confines of staying true to the spirit of it, you can't be overly precious either. This had to be a version that for us as writers and for Jack and I as directors and for the cast playing it had to work. So there are things in our version, particularly in the third act, that are different, but mostly they were because there's a lot of compression of storytelling in the silent medium, for obvious reasons, because they couldn't rely on the natural human interactions of conversation. That sometimes things were chopped down to a point that if you actually played them out the way that they were written for that medium, they would make little to no sense whatsoever. So you again, you just have to trust yourself as a writer to kind of flesh that out and make the whole thing still feel of a piece.
While trying to avoid the producer saying, spend less all the time, less money,
Absolutely.
spend less.
The beauty with audio is the only time the producer tells you to spend less is if you've written 100 characters in and you don't know anyone that can do 100 different voices. It's not that you can build whatever sets you like in audio. That's one of the beauties of that medium.
Is the fact that this movie is a lost classic part of the appeal to you, that why you chose to work on this?
It was for me, I am a massive fan of missing media. I use this analogy a lot, but right now the BBC are going back and they're animating those missing Doctor Who episodes to kind of unlock the archive. They've got the sound, but not the visuals anymore. And they put things on in London. I'm the first person to pay £20 a ticket to sit there in a cinema in London watching an animation placed over a soundtrack from the 1960s. But, specifically for London After Midnight, if you dig and you go through social media, you will find 2 new people a day saying, I wish I could have seen this film. I wish it existed. I wish it was found. Why has nobody remade it? And it initially started with a gut feeling that there was something here that would appeal, would help, and just it just felt like it was a massive opportunity, and everything kind of aligned at the right time in terms of what was going on with workload and the status of projects and where things were wrapping up and starting again. There was a gap there, and I thought, okay, let's talk to Lance. And then subsequently we spoke to Kenton. We had a big 3-way, and it's like, look, can we put our heads together? We know how to make really good audio drama. We know how to make multicast productions for the audio space. Can we do this, and can we do it well? And that actual challenge started with Kenton and Lance having to do the script to begin with. So there was a nervous waiting for about 6 weeks. But when that first draft dropped in, it was like, honestly, Kenton, I'll tell you, I built a little Facebook messaging group, which we still use today. And it actually started with one of the best first drafts I'd ever read. It was stunning. They'd done it. And I knew if we worked hard and really, really kept pushing it, it was going to turn out to be something special.
I still maintain we've been at the cooking sherry, but that's more rightly self-deprecation than anything. It was all because I think a lot of writers will tell you that if you're not used to working with a co-writer, there's a certain amount of you're on edge a little bit, because some of the time, because one, you're trying to prove your own right to be there in the first place, and two, will our styles dovetail? I have a very strong authorial voice, I think. I have a style and a way of writing that I'm comfortable in. But then again, as a writer, sometimes you want to be made to feel uncomfortable so that you're trying something else. So I think it was a weird kind of almost 18th century correspondence where Lance and I were basically writing a continuing letter to each other in sort of 15-page increments of this is how this story is talking to me, and carry on. And then, subsequent passes. So I, like, to this day, I do not remember now who wrote what in it. I know everybody wrote something on every page at some stage, and it is really a seamless two-writer thing. We kind of became a gestalt entity at some stage. It was very peculiar. Because normally my writing life is me staring at a screen in the dark and cursing in multiple languages. So it was kind of nice to sometimes get to the end of a page and go, I don't know what happens anymore, Lance. You figure it out. Because otherwise, I have to concoct multiple personalities, and that never ends well for anyone.
Was the plan from the beginning to always do the novelization, or did you see like how successful you were doing at creating the audio, and then you decided the novelization after that?
Oh, that's an interesting one. It sounds like the novelization part of it sounds like one of my 4 a.m. emails. I think the production diaries is definitely Jack's idea. I think we had floated the idea of a script book quite early on. I think part of it is, and I've found this across other projects recently as well, is that when you're working in the independent space, your audience is there, but you don't have the thousands upon thousands of pounds to spend on marketing to get them all in one big fell swoop. It's elbow grease. It's door to door. It's one person by one person by one person. And when it doesn't involve another enormous amount of outlay, which can be incredibly stressful, but by creating multiple ways of people of accessing the story, opens it up to people discovering it. And I think there is a pragmatic side to all of it as well. With London After Midnight entering the public domain, it was something with some name recognition on which we could work that gets our foot in the door. We all have worked on multiple original projects, and some have been very well received, but every single time, unless you've had some kind of big global smash creatively, you're always starting from scratch in terms of audience. So being able to work on something that people might already be interested in has two sides. One, you get your foot in the door, you get a little bit of people will talk about it. But then the flip side of that is it's got to be really damn good, because, if you're going to attach your name to another piece of work that people already have an awareness or an affection or a curiosity about, then it holds it on you not to screw it up. So with the novelization, for me, it was a chance, because I've written the novel, which I'm just putting the final editing touches on now. It was a chance to just, like, having lived with the story as the script and the audio drama for months and months and months and months, you do naturally as a writer start to go, oh, I wish I could have talked about this. I wish I could have dug a little bit deeper into that scene, or there's backstory here that could flesh this out, and I'd love to spend a bit more time with these characters and dig a little deeper. So all these ideas were like, in my head, were like, well, I know how I would write it if it were a novel. And it's like, oh, I should probably just write it as a novel. But then Jack wrote these great production diaries, into which I make my usual, as you can tell, tangential and linguistically tortured interjections throughout. And then Lance and I's original script is in there, and various other pieces of sort of production ephemera. So it's what we're calling a companion book, but whatever kind of stuff you like in books, we got some of it in there. It's a book for everyone.
It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So
Unless you absolutely hate horror or hats or words, then maybe then it's not your ideal Christmas. But other than that, I think it's right across the board.
or if you are a fan of our London After Midnight, but you want none of the magic spoiled, don't buy this book. It gives away everything. Yeah.
Was there
But it
anything
gives away everything in a way that not even we understand completely. So there is some mystery.
Was there anything that you did in the audio production that you couldn't make work for the novelization or vice versa?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it ties back to what I said about translation between mediums. It's just now it was like adapting a script that had been adapted from a script and an audio, because things change in the making of. As soon as you get actors involved and sound design and the direction, things come out in actors' performances and then the way that scenes cut together that shift the emphasis of the script. What the difficulty is, the same way as we had to try and translate a very visual design into an audio design, is now to find a way of, without falling too heavily into purple prose, creating that sort of spooky atmosphere. And also because it's a period piece, it's set in the original period that the film was set in. There is a certain amount of tropey description that tends to kind of hang around those types of stories. And I'm always one for trying to subvert that. So yeah, it was about making it sufficiently atmospheric, but also with the lightness that I think we got in the audio drama, is that it's a horror story, but it's also a ghost story, but it's also a twisted gothic romance. It plays with a lot of the history of those forms and those genres. And the book kind of tries to do the same thing, but without becoming tricksy. It's still just a damn good yarn, hopefully told well. But it does mean that I can actually dig into the characters a little bit more, take some time over moments that, to keep an audio drama pacey, had to be quick. But in a novel, you can actually dwell a little bit more on like the developing relationship between two of the characters, some of the sort of interconnected relationships between the characters in this house and the class stuff that involves. So yeah, there's more. There's more in the novel, but primarily because the form demands it rather than anything being lacking from the audio drama. They're just very different ways of telling the same story.
What would you say has been the like, how well has this been received by your colleagues when they found out that you were working on these projects for London After Midnight? Were a lot of people enthusiastic about it?
Yes. I mean, like, because the first test was actually casting, because we had to send that script out. We had to also, we were very determined to do it under a little bit of cloak of secrecy as well, because we did want to sort of take the world by surprise and say London After Midnight was back. And, we were punching out the script, and barring the tough part of actually getting someone who had good profile like Art Malik to come on board and take the lead, more due to time commitments and other pressures around the production, like the SAG strike, for example. That I had a good feeling about the script. Kenton and Lance worked it. I felt it was great. It started going out. I think everyone was pretty much first choice who said yes on reading the script. And then Art got on board and he came in on his day. He was full of enthusiasm for the script. He loved it. He was virtually hugging you out the studio at the end of the day, wasn't he? Kenton.
I was frightened.
Yes. It was like we're putting him in
Frightened and warmed at the same time. It was lovely.
it was, and he was like saying, write more, write more. So, the cast came in, they smashed it. And these are good actors and they responded very well to the material. I mean, Dan Starkey signed up after only reading the first scene. So he took 5 minutes to read the script and went, yeah. So we had an inkling, but I think some of the magic that has helped with the response to it has been, talking about two things were totally unexpected from the project when we began it. First of all was Rory O'Shea giving us a beautiful Dolby Atmos level mix, which is a massive game changer. You might think full cast audio drama, you think you might know what that sounds like, but when you get your hands on one that's been made in Dolby Atmos, it's like nothing else. And the second thing, which I'm guilty of never talking about enough, is the fact that Kenton and Brett Richardson went off and worked this beautiful score. In my head, I was thinking for cost purposes, originally we would maybe use copyright free music or something like that. But between Rory and Kenton and Brett's work on post-production in those areas, somehow it just turned it into something far more beautiful than even I'd ever anticipated. So, when people do get to listen to it and roll out, I had an email come in today from someone who was 3 months behind in listening to it and said how much they loved it. I thought, well, you always hope it's going to land because you can put good stuff out there and people not like it. But so far, every single review has been positive. If we were on Rotten Tomatoes, we'd be 100% fresh. And everyone who's listened has gone, really, really love it. And interestingly, what has been some of the best things that people have responded to are those little nips, tucks, tweaks, and changes that Kenton and Lance have made to that third act. So I couldn't be more happy with how well it's gone down. And that's why, that was the kind of spur for me to say, okay, because people have asked me about writing a book before about how you make audio drama. They've all gone, no, because the only book you want on that is written by Casey Wayland called The Bomb Always Beeps. That's the book you want. But this just felt like people were really, really enjoying what we had made. So why not just lift the veil on the curtain and hopefully put down a piece that in that book can help someone else create something. I talk about this in my introduction, that there used to be a companion show to the early years of the revival of Doctor Who called Doctor Who Confidential. And every week it was just a mini documentary about an aspect of production. And that was the thing that taught me how to produce. Without realizing it, I was absorbing all this knowledge. And you don't get shows like that anymore. You just
they've thankfully brought Doctor Who Unleashed back for the new. Well, new.
No. But there is a slightly different focus with Unleashed, and I think it's not necessarily as nuts and bolts as Confidential was. So for me, the production diaries are just hopefully an insight into how we pieced all of this together. Because if you want to make something good, you really have to work for it, you have to fight for it. And what I hope those diaries are going to show is we had a lot of luck. I mean, I'm not joking. This has been one of the smoothest things I've ever produced, and that is extremely rare, but it's still a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And if we can put down things in this book that will help someone understand what they should be crying over, bleeding over, and shouting over, where the energy should go, then I hope that does the job. And it'll be a really, really beautiful little package, between you'll get the script with it, you'll get the production diaries with it, you'll get Kenton's novelization, you'll get our introductions, you'll get our thoughts. There's like a little mini production guide that's going in that book as well. So it should be, when you read it, as Kenton said, it's got something for everyone, but above all else, what it should do is just show we seem to have made something, it's resonated, people love it. How did we do that? And this is in an age where a lot of these tie-in books are now extended PR, media, puff pieces, shaped to tie in. This is us just telling our 10-month journey as it was.
For the production diaries and the novelization, is this the first time you guys have done something like this?
Well, I am partially novelist by trade, so I've written books before, but I have done some licensed media, and I've got a novelization of something else that hasn't been announced yet, frustratingly, so I can't talk about that. I'll talk about this. This is more important for now. But yeah, no, I like it. I mean, I like expanding a story from other mediums. It's for me, there's two sides, because when I work on licensed properties or adaptations, it's a real boot camp for a writer, because it isn't necessarily your original conception, and there are parameters within which you need to work in order for it to be attractive to the audience for which it's intended. But at the same time, you got to make it your own, and you have to use your own voice and your own way of approaching storytelling. When I work on my own stuff, it's a very different feeling, because you're creating it from scratch. But at the same time, the sales pitch at the end of that is a lot more, here's the thing I did. Why should we care? Oh, I have to know that too. Oh, it's the thing. Look at the pretty thing. And just when you work in life, probably it's just like, look, here's the thing you've heard of. I hope I haven't ruined it. So it's pinging back and forth between those two things. But I mean, like a lot of nerdy writers of my age and fighting way, I grew up on Doctor Who novelizations. So that idea of expanding story and taking it out of the realms of its original sort of screen incarnation and turning it into a novel is something that's like one of the things I read as a child and when I was and became a kind of foundation stone for the type of stories that I like to tell. So yeah, it's nice to be carrying on in that tradition. But I write a lot of different things. Jack knows that I've written a lot of completely different uh, working with him on everything from stuff for children to horror to sci-fi to spy-fi to I've written nonfiction. I can't be stopped, and they've tried. But I think the biggest thing is going back to what Jack was saying about the production diaries is that all of the projects I've ever been involved with, and I think Lance, and I can speak to a certain degree for Lance and Jack in this as well, is that there are a lot of very talented creative people out there that are still sitting around waiting for permission to make and that they need to have someone come along with a big bag of money and go, now you can do the thing you want to do. And well, I will accept big bags of money and I'm willing to provide an address for your listeners if anyone wants to bring a big bag of money to me and ask me to make things. I'm not against money. But everything I've accomplished in my career, and I think it's the same for Jack, the best things have always been no one coming forward and saying, will you please make this? But actually going, what, is no one going to make it? Okay, well, then I'll make it. I wrote and directed a feature film. It's on Netflix. I did that for about £28,000, which was £28,000 more than I had. But I made my first feature film and no one can ever take that away from me.
Mm.
And the things that Jack and I have made, we've had occasion times where we've worked for a company and got to make something on a much bigger budget. But a lot of times the passion projects have been, well, if you're not going to help us do it, we're just going to do it anyway. And that's what I want to see more creatives doing is just, but the flip side to that is that there are people out there also that are going out and making with very little idea of what professional projects should sound like, look like, how much detail you need to go into, how much work it actually involves to do it right. So it's finding that balance. I'm a musician as well, and it was the same thing. When people suddenly had recording equipment in their bedrooms, that was like, great, that frees people from the domination of the big record labels. But some of the music was awful because people were like, I can. Can you? You should try. Definitely. I'm not against you trying, but maybe try again. And so you do. I'm a big believer in craft. A big believer in craft and the fact that you should be getting better every time. But that in order to do that, you have to be constantly listening, constantly reading. I mean, as a writer, a big part of what I consider my job is I read 15 books a week because I have to feed the machine. I have to see what else I could do, what else I can be inspired by, where I feel I might have gone wrong, where could get better, where I've forgotten what I was inspired by in the first place. It's the same with music. It's the same with audio drama. It's the same with film. If you're not consuming the work of your peers, at some point you will just run out of juice. And also just revel in the work and creativity of other people. Inspiration is great. Creativity is great, but craft is equally important. To actually take the time and take to refine what you do. Even the most gloriously anarchic punk album is a result of craft. And that doesn't mean everything's polished or finessed. It just means that everything is thought about and felt deeply and taking the time to really make sure that the things you choose to do have that at their core. And I think part of what the production diaries goes is this is how you do it for real. It's a possible thing to do. It's going to be hard. And sometimes you will hate it. And sometimes it will be awful. Like, at no point if I ever say to anyone, yes, you can do it and you'll have a great time. You'll have a great time 10% of the time. When you have that 10% will be a really great time and it will be so rewarding. There are moments during London After Midnight, the recording in particular with other actors, which are some of the greatest career moments of my entire life. Just little glorious moments that I will dream of in the bath chair in the retirement home. And when the long winter evenings drag on. And then there are times during the making of it and definitely during the promotion of it where I've wanted to blow up everything ever made, including myself, or to just change my name and run away. Because it's really hard to make a living out of creating things for people. So the reason why we're joyous is about getting on, talking to you and talking to anyone about it is because, yeah, geez, oh, go out and buy it for the love of God. Because if you want other things like this that it seems to be that you're enjoying, put your money where your mouths are and buy the thing. So, it's not mercenary to go, look, we love making it, but my kids just seem to want to eat every day like absolute deviants. Or independent artists, if you don't want the corporate machine of stuff, or you don't want just that, because I like big budget stuff too. If you don't want just that as your only offering, you got to support independent artists. You got to support good stuff that's being made. And despite the fact that oftentimes this vape is my only sustenance in any given day, I try to still go out and support other artists. So yeah, that's my sales pitch. That's my very Canadian, very polite sales pitch, which is go and buy it. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I don't mind trying to sell the product. It's good.
Do you have plans for any other projects related to London After Midnight? Perhaps recreating the movie or I
Oh
don't know.
God, I joked about this. Like people said, "Oh, why did you do it as an audio drama or an audio movie?" And I went, "Well, I'm an audio producer. It would be insanity to have attempted my first feature film, not knowing the lay of the land, and it to be London After Midnight and come out in any way good." But yes, so there's a couple of I think Lance has talked about the fact he would be very keen to turn it into a graphic novel sometime next year, moving forward. We're also going to begin March time with cinema screenings, hearings, maybe is a better word for it. But we're partnering with the Misty Moon Film Society. Stuart Morris there is a massive Lon Chaney London After Midnight fan, and they do a lot of screenings of cult horrors across London. And because we have this beautiful movie mix, we can actually play it in movie theatres and cinemas. And so we'll be starting next March in the UK, and we'll see how that will go. And then, like literally about 3 weeks ago, we were all just kind of messing about on the WhatsApp, on the Facebook Messenger group, and there just came this moment when Kenton worked out how to franchise London After Midnight into a forever ongoing series of
Like I said, I cannot be
stories. It cannot be stopped. And we keep tagging Blumhouse. It's like, call us. Yeah, come on, Blumhouse.
Yeah,
Jason
so
Blum, come on.
there is, I think, a very entertaining idea for a continuing series to be found in it. But like I said, if you want to hear any more about it, you got to buy the one we already made.
Yeah,
And if you like
awesome.
physical media, and I know the kind of people who like to listen to things about film and books and stuff, you liked your physical media because we've got vinyl. We got vinyl. We've got CDs because apparently it's still 2004. And we've got digital for all of you kids on the go. And we've got books with actual paper, but also ebooks for those with the Kindles. I have a Kindle. That's probably because my eyesight's going, and I love the fact the book can now be made bigger. That's where I've after years of
And glow from behind. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So we're down with the kids, but we're also down with the geriatrics. So we've got it covered all. We've got it. We've got you covered. We got your back, people. We got you.
For those who may not be familiar with London After Midnight, can you just give the general plot?
There's a plot. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Right.
yes.
Yeah,
You know that bit you sketched out between all the title cards.
yeah.
That's okay. So okay, we are on the where we open. We're on an estate before. Yeah, so we're on an English estate in the 1920s. 5 years previous, the Lord of the Manor, Roger Balfour, befell a terrible, terrible fate, and his friend Sir James Hamlin, played by Dan Starkey, steps in to look after the family. As the audio movie begins, another tragedy befalls the same family in the same vicinity of the same house, and that, after 6 months, convinces Sir James Hamlin, Sir James Starkey, gosh, Dan, I love that. Convinces Sir James Hamlin when a mysterious resident moves in to the unoccupied home that has been Balfour House, has been absent since the last tragedy, which is where London After Midnight begins. He becomes convinced that vampires have moved in So he calls for Scotland Yard, and that is where the story starts.
And this was London After Midnight it wasn't the first, but it was one of the first vampire movies ever made. I think Nosferatu was first, if I'm not mistaken.
1922, I want to
Yeah, the
say. Yes.
Last
So,
Roger.
so 5
Okay.
years previous, yeah.
So London
Okay.
After Midnight, we were the one that was the first that wasn't a willful act of plagiarism.
But on the other hand, what it did do though, which was then further, with Mark of the Vampire, is it did start to encode the iconography of the gentleman, the cinematic gentleman vampire, whereas Nosferatu was more carnal, beast-like,
Yeah.
more of a creature of the night, demonic. The man with the beaver hat, despite having some aspects of a creature of a demonic nature, also is very well dressed, very well suited. And that's what we talk about the iconography still living on today with horror films like Abaddon and, The Grabber in The Black Phone by C. Robert Cargill, who co-scripted The Black Phone and, did things like Doctor
And thought
Strange.
London After Midnight was great.
He did. Yes, I met him. I knew him just before he became famous for Sinister with Ethan Hawke, and I just tweeted him and said, "Would you take a copy, have a listen?" And he came back and he went, "Yeah," and he used lots of words beginning with F. No, he used one word beginning with F, which has actually been a consistent feature of our feedback when we part it around industry circles. It always comes with the F word. So yes,
Yes.
for fam for vampire.
Vampire.
For vampire. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it does have its place there in those early seeds of what cinematic vampires are today. And it's interesting that its iconography has sort of branched away from vampirism into more demonic forces or more with the Black Phone. The look at, the maybe I shouldn't spoil that one. But it is part of that journey for what you now associate with vampirism on film. It's a vital little Lego brick in that little tower that we've been building to over the last 100 years since 1920.
It's crazy to think that these films were made over 100 years ago or almost 100 years ago, and it's awesome that people still talk about them.
But I mean, that's the interesting thing about lost media. I mean, it's actually while there are instances of books or plays being lost, we tend to have to go back several hundred years before that starts to be a thing where a work is referenced somewhere where they can't find a copy of it. It's actually made more because of the nature of film and its impermanence, particularly in the early days of film, and the lack of care in some places for taking sort of preserving cultural monuments, is that we actually we have more lost media from the 20th century than we have from the 19th to the 18th to the 17th. We still talk about those books and those plays, they're still studied, and yet there are films made within the lifetimes of people that are still with us that we don't have and can't see.
Hmm.
Doctor Who is a perfect example of something early days are lost. I've said fans of that show of my age, there are episodes we will likely never see, but there are people alive who saw it, who have seen them. There are people alive that have actually seen every episode of Doctor Who from the beginning. And
Yeah.
but some of that's lost from like the 60s, things that were entertainment that people have consumed that is just gone from, in the lifetimes of people that aren't even that old. So it is very strange, but because the lineage of what we write about, what we are entertained by, what we are frightened by is so vital to humanity's understanding of itself that any act of cultural preservation, you can think of London After Midnight as being, small within the realm of human entertainment as a whole, but it is something that had an impact on people. And to be part of preserving it in even any small way, I feel is like a tiny little step in the right direction for reminding ourselves that the things that we choose to take the time to represent on stage or screen or page, it's important, regardless of what type of story, it is important to us because we chose to tell it. And that that a human mind or a group of human minds went, we are going to take some of this allotted span that we have, and we're going to invest it in telling this story for whatever reason. That's quite an amazing thing that I don't think we always pause to appreciate, that people have taken time out of their lives to tell us a story. And that story becomes part of our own story, and it leapfrogs to become a story that we tell, or a story that we share, story that we bond over. Storytelling is the single most important part of the human experience, because it is our attempt to connect individuals with each other. And it's the most potent way in which we do that. Forget love and romance and family and all that stuff. Storytelling is the core of what it means to be a human being. Oh my God, that's the most pretentious thing I've ever said out loud.
I'm
And
glad
yet
I'm
I
going to be
stand by it.
podcasted.
But I stand by it entirely.
Well, I mean, you talk about that, but even in the 21st century, because I started out doing audio drama and scripted podcasting right at the very beginning, like 2006. And if, over time, if you go back through my resume, some of those pieces got mislaid by the production team, and they probably exist on some iPod that's gone dormant in a drawer. But production companies can't find them. I have pieces of media I have written or directed which are now officially missing, and they were digitized. They were digital audio.
Let's remake them.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's remake them as
I
silent
got it
film.
right. You're right. Yes.
Silent film. That's what we meant. See.
Yes. So, it's still a problem that we are grappling with today, that a lot of the early podcasts are going missing. And there is actually a podcast preservation project with the British Library in London. And this one always kills me. I had a stack, just to give you an example of how recent this has got. I had a stack of videotapes, and one of the things, there used to be like a breakfast show called The Big Breakfast in the UK that did entertainment features. I had hundreds of tapes of articles for The Big Breakfast. And I rang someone up and said, I've got these tapes. They go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s. And they said, no, just throw away anything from the 90s. And I did. Got rid of all the Big Breakfast tapes. And then 2 weeks later, someone said, oh, does anyone know if anyone's got an archive of Big Breakfast? Because, Channel 4 didn't preserve it at the time. So it just goes to show that in this crazy age, anything even on someone's videotape right now officially could be something the production company doesn't have.
On the flip side, I found the first novel I ever wrote when I was 20 in a paper copy in a box, and I wish I hadn't, because it made me feel very bad about myself. So, what I was saying is, let's preserve some things, but let's not preserve the juvenilia of me. That's what
To be fair, though, it's not your place. It's not your place.
So if people would like to learn more about these projects, they can go to londonaftermidnight.co.uk.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
And there's even a little bit of a trailer and some samples of the audio production on there.
Yep.
And I've listened to those, and after listening to them, I think this is going to make a nice Christmas present for myself, because Kenton, like you were saying earlier, this is good stuff. This is pretty high quality. I really enjoyed this little sneak peek I got.
Yeah, thank you.
How about you? Oh,
Well, thank you. Well, thank you again after you buy it.
So, and we're doing signed copies of the books. If that matters to anyone, we'll sign them.
And if you can find one that isn't signed, it'd be worth an absolute fortune. So we'll provide those as well.
For an extra 50 pounds.
You get, just to show for myself and my mate as well, you also get a mini score album with it as well, both on the vinyl CD and with the digital, where we've remixed, because some of the music that we wrote for it is under score and it's part of the scene, but we've remixed 6 tracks into an album of music from the show as well. So
very cool.
For an extra £500, I will wear any costume you want to deliver any physical media to your address.
I'll come to your house and recite it. I'll put it on wax cylinder. I'm willing to write it out longhand and post it to you in a scented letter with a wax stamp. It'll be fine. I'll just get in touch. Specialty requests are accepted.
Yes.
I'll be in touch with you if I win the lottery.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe you guys can dress up as the man in the beaver hat and come over and Checked it out.
I'm just gonna dress as the beaver hat.
No, I was going to say you be the hat and I be the, but no,
No. No, let's not lower the jokes. So we're just doing so well.
it's a family podcast.
Yeah, this has been
so-
a high flowing literary discussion up until this point, Jack. Please.
yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to mention about either one of these projects? Anything else that we haven't touched on yet?
Oh, well, we'd love you to buy a copy if you haven't bought a
Yeah.
copy yet. And like Kenton says, it's in any format you wish. That's something we're working on because one of the things we really wanted to do with this project, outside of making it bloody good and being a brilliant remake and all that kind of stuff we strive for, is actually to try and break the mentality of how audio can be bought, consumed, and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people want to throw it on as a podcast and you never make your money back again. So we've really thought about, if you're a fan of vinyl, if you're a vinyl collector, these are limited edition. There's only going to be 301 copies anywhere in the world, ever. If you still like compact discs, those are almost sold out. If you want to take away that high-end, beautiful 3D immersive mix, that's also available as well. So yeah, please, we've catered for every taste. So grab one, grab a copy, and tell your friends as well if you enjoy it. That's the other
Yeah.
thing.
In all
Yeah.
seriousness, like, you're not just sort of funding the making of this project that we've already done, but you're creating an environment where not only us, but a lot of other creatives can make more things. And it enables us to bring more creative people into our orbit and get other things made as well. So it's the beginning of, I hope it's like the first step in a long journey of projects to come that can be made at this scale and to this quality, and provide work for a lot of hardworking people. You know, we're being able to cast fantastic voice actors, not just people like Art and Dan who have a profile outside of it, but people who are hardworking voice actors, people like Beth Eyre and great writers like David K. Barnes is also a great actor, David Bickerstaff, and to create it. It was part of the thing that was so joyous about it, was actually getting out of the house and into a studio and act again. For me as an actor, you know, having gone through the pandemic with everyone, and really that side of my career having kind of shut down for several years, just to get back out and to be playing some of my first scenes back as an actor opposite Art Malik and Dan Starkey was a little bit intimidating, but you know, it's, you put your game face on and you go. So, but I want to do more of that. We've all of us in this team have worked very, very hard over the years to get to a point where we're confident that we can tell stories that you might like to hear. And now the biggest part of the job is shouting about it and getting people to come over and take a chance on it. And we feel pretty confident this time, and particularly with what stuff we have to come, and we'll make it worth your while. And if nothing else, the book will make a tremendous draft excluder. So it's gonna be fat, man. It's gonna be fat.
Any websites or social media where people can learn more about you guys or follow you?
I mean, I'm easy to find because there's like Kenton Hall, there's me, and there's a building. So
Yeah.
and on Twitter, which I will never call X, I will sometimes call Elon's Folly. It's just at Kenton Hall. And the people at the building Kenton Hall are not happy about it because they had to have at Hall Kenton. And sometimes people advertise wedding fairs in me, and it's very amusing. But yeah, I'm very visibly out there shouting in the world about all sorts of projects. So you just type my name into Google, you will find me in several places. But Jack's, and he tends to put real Jack Bowman in front of his name so that you don't get any counterfeit Jack Bowmans that might be running around.
I was accused of being a counterfeit Jack Bowman by Matt Berry, of all people. So I was actually something different. So I changed it to real Jack Bowman just to go, nah, Mr. Berry. We worked together a long time ago. But yeah, I real Jack Bowman on the Twitter X or whatever it's called today. Jack Bowman 1979 on most other platforms like Instagram and stuff like that. And also my label, Audio Marvels. If you type that in, you can find us online through Instagram and the website.
Right, awesome. And I'll make sure I include some links in the description for this episode. And
Fantastic. Thank you.
Jack, Kenton, thank you again for joining me today. It's been great learning more about the projects and talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Real pleasure.
Thank you. Real pleasure. Cheers.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for all you guys for listening today. Appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter at a Happy Moment Pod, and also a Happy Moment Podcast on YouTube. Thanks again, everybody. I'll talk to you later.